cycle today. And the first thing to write down on your paper is objections are good. Contrary to popular belief, objections are good. Most people think they're negative. They're giving me objections. They don't want Cutco. That's actually complete opposite. All right, an objection means that they need clarity still. They're missing some information to make a decision. If it was rejection, it would say automatically, no, I don't want your Cutco. I don't like this product. It's terrible, right? Raise your hand if most people have said no to the homemaker, but they said, I like Cutco, show me something else, or is there other things? Almost everyone's hands raised because people aren't saying no to Cutco. And a big thing to learn while you're working here is paying attention to the language that we use, right? The questions we ask determine the quality of our life and the expectations that we have. The question isn't, are they buying Cutco? It's, are you wanting to get the homemaker set today, right? They're not saying no to Cutco, they're saying no to that option. So learning that no's are good, because on average, you're gonna have how many no's before you hear a yes? Does anybody know? 4 to 5. You'll hear 4 or 5 no's on average before you hear a yes. Why? Because what we're doing is moving through the scale of what someone's comfortable spending and finding their comfort level. Some people have no problem spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Anyone have someone buy a homemaker in full? If they buy a homemaker in full, they should buy an ultimate or a kitchen on a 5-pay, just so you know. Okay? Because what they can spend in full, they can do on a monthly payment. But it's also, what is your expectation? What do you think? Right? But no's are good. Objections are good. We need to find clarity. Another thing to write down is most objections, especially the first one, is called a smoke screen objection. A smoke screen objection. And what smoke screen means is that it's not truly the concern. It's not truly the concern. What it typically means is they need more information or they need a better deal. Right? Anyone have someone tell them no to a homemaker, but you showed them like a special and then they said yes? Almost half the room raised their hand here, right? Because we need clarity, okay? So there are 4 steps to handling the objection. And before I jump into that, this skill is not just for selling Cutco, okay? This skill I'm about to go through is going to help your everyday relationships with people, okay? Anyone ever had a conversation with someone where they needed more information to make a decision, or they were trying to tell you something that was wrong, and it became a fight versus them open to listen to what you had to say? Anyone experienced that before? Okay, what happened? What comes up in the conversation? A wall of disagreement, a lack of understanding. Okay, so how do you handle this? And this is what we're going to talk about today, is making sure people feel heard and listened to. Okay, one of the things I struggled with when I first started showing Cutco is I would take no's personally. So that's one big thing to write down. Don't take no personally. They're not telling you no. They're not even saying no to Cutco. They're just saying no to that option. Okay? And so what I learned, though, is as I was going through this, if people don't feel like you're actually listening to them, you're only, yeah, okay, cool. Let me show you the next option. We're kind of skirting past what they're saying. Now you're becoming a pushy salesperson. How do you mitigate that? Well, we do active listening. All right, the first step in this process is to bring the wall down. How do we bring the wall down? First step is agree. So step 1 in the objection cycle is agree with them. Now, everyone pay attention. There's a little bit of key here. It's not with what they're saying. It's agree with how they feel. You're agreeing with how they feel. Because their feelings are valid. Why? It's their feelings. No one can say your feelings are wrong. Okay, so we have to agree with their feelings. Understand, like, meet them where they are. I completely understand how you feel. You know, if I was in your situation, I might feel the same way. Cool? So we're going to agree with their feeling. The second step, now some people use the word but I use the word however. However, we're going to give them an alternative way to think through this process. So first we're going to agree, and we're going to say, however, Connor, let me show you. And the third step is give the alternative answer, okay? So an alternate option or the truth. Right? You might ever had a disagreement with a friend and they're like, oh, you did X, Y, this happened. And you're like, I hear what you're saying, but I actually never said that. Anyone have a disagreement through a text message or misunderstanding through something like that? Happens all the time. But if you first agree with what they're saying and how they're feeling, even if you didn't do anything to make that happen, now we change the experience in this conversation. You're going to see someone they get like defensive sometimes. You ruin their ammo. You take it away from them. I completely think I understand how you feel. You know, if I was in that situation, I'd feel the same way. However, I actually didn't send that text message. And now they're, oh, what? Okay. And now it completely changes the whole conversation, because now we're not trying to fight them. We're meeting them where they're at and then giving them alternative experiences or truths that happen versus what they thought would happen. Right? Have you ever had a situation where you thought something else happened and then you talk to the person, you're like, oh, that didn't happen at all. Okay, glad we had this conversation. Communication fixes almost every issue you have in your life if we just ask questions about it. Okay? In Cutco, it's the same way. These objections or questions or concerns that they have are just lack of information, and we need to find out. The reason it's a smokescreen objection, by the way, is because we need to dive in and get curious with them. Okay? If you don't get curious with them, they're going to use the smokescreen as their objection all the way through. But if it's not the true objection, then you won't be able to handle it or make a sale from there, because you're handling something that's not the right issue. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Raise your hand if you've had someone ask you to go do something. Hey, you want to go out this weekend? And you said, no, I don't have the money, even though you had money in your bank account. Anyone done that? Any customer ever tell you they couldn't afford it? Well, welcome to life. They can actually afford it. But what the issue is that we need to figure out what is their real concern. It's not that they can't afford it. They're not comfortable spending $1,500 for the homemaker. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Everybody can afford Cutco. Now we have to figure out where their comfort level is. And if you do it with how they feel in the process of dropping down, they'll be more honest with you. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? Right? So the third step, after you give them the alternative option, this is the most important. This is where a lot of people mess up, is you got to AFTO. Means ask for the order again. Ask for the order again. Okay? So we're going to agree with how they feel. We're going to meet them where they are. However, you're going to give the alternate option. So I completely understand, 1549 is a lot all at once. That's actually why most of our customers take advantage of our 5-month interest-free Easy Pay. It's only $313 today. How does that sound? Guess what? All those steps are already built into your script for you. Now, let me show who wants to get out of like a ticket. Anyone want to get out of a ticket? No, only a couple of you. Okay, well, I'll teach some of you guys this. All right, you need to stop speeding. I say this, one of my guys, Jay Martinez, he took this and he's like, Spencer, I think he just wanted to try everything I taught him. He got out of 4 tickets using this methodology. Right? The cop pulls over, he goes, do you know why I pulled you over? Yes, sir, I think I was speeding a little bit. All right, agree? However, sir, I apologize. I'm on my way. I just got my job. I'm on my way, first appointment. If you let me go on this one, I won't speed on your roads ever again. How does that sound? He got out of 4 tickets that way. I'm not even joking. One of our guys, David Morales, I can't even tell you how many tickets he's got out of using. Now, I'm not going to tell you right now you're getting out of a ticket if you did this. But one of the biggest ways to get out of it, ever heard everyone get pulled over and they're like, do you know why I pulled you over? No, sir, I have no idea. You know you were going faster than you're supposed to be, right? So if you admit to it and understand where they're coming from already, you take the power out of their fight. And now they're, oh, okay. Wow, most people try to lie to me and you're like upfront and honest right out of the bat. You know what? I'll let you go this time. It's crazy. Here's a couple other options on ways to do this, right? Anyone have mom tell you can't go do something? You need to clean your room or something like that, right? Mom, I completely hear you. I understand where you're coming from. My room is a mess. But the boys, we already made plans. We're going to the beach today. Here's what I'll tell you. If I clean my room when I get back, I'll promise it'll be clean the entire summer. If not, you can ground me. How does that sound?
Go make sure that room's clean though.
I'm telling you, I'm going to the beach. And I'm gonna keep my room clean, but I might have that conversation again later. But anyway, do you guys see how easy this is to adapt in different situations? Guys, you're going out, you see a girl out and you ask her if she wants to go out and she says no. Like, hey, I completely understand how you feel, Johnny. But let me tell you, what most ladies have found out that after our first date, I'm a pretty swell guy. I'll make sure we do, I'll take care of you. We'll go to dinner and then we'll go out dancing if you want. So how does that sound? 7 or 8?
Is that how you did Kathy?
No. A lot more work than that. But anyway, so the process works in anything. Fill in the blank with whatever you want. The most important thing is agreeing with how they feel. Don't say the word but, because if you use the word but, you negate everything you said before that. Okay? I'm gonna teach you some psychology. Words have a lot more impact than we think they do. So but means I don't really care what I said, I'm just saying that to be nice. However says, I know this is true, but there's an alternative option as well. And then you give the alternative or the truth. And then in Cutco, it's really simple. Mrs. Jones, I completely understand. A lot of our customers have felt the same way, but what they end up doing is, let's say it's too much, they drop down to, let me show you some of the smaller options, see if those are a better fit for you. If not, we can customize for you. How does that sound? You mind if I show you some of the other stuff for fun? For fun. That thing, Dante has some key words, man. I tell you what, for fun, everyone wants to be shown things for fun. Raise your hand if you want to be sold something.
Can I show you this 9th grade order?
No one wants to be sold anything, but everybody loves to be shown the newest stuff, the coolest stuff, right? So if you focus on the words showing versus selling, it'll also impact your results. But hey, can I show you it for fun with a big smile on your face? And when you're going through the objection cycle, you have to be confident when you go through this, okay? They need your confidence. In the beginning though, if you're not super sure, just remember, the script as far as Cutco goes already has it written. Or you guys know, you click the little objection button, you have multiple ones there already ready to go. So keeping it simple, understand objections are good. As you're going through this, you need to highlight and learn what the real objection is, okay? And so there's another book, if you guys want to take it a little step further, there's a book called The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belford. Probably saw Wolf of Wall Street. He wrote a book specifically on working through the sales process. And our manual does that. And one of the things he talks about is called the straight line method. And with the straight line method, your focus is to get from point A to point B as quick as possible. Some people like to talk too much and they pull themselves far away from the line. So now the customer gets more confused, unfocused on the material, and it becomes you have to convince them versus show them and build value. Cool? So objections bring it back. And in the process of his book, he talks about once you highlight the objection, it's like, hey, so Tony, if it was a little bit cheaper, if we could, if it's just a little bit too much, so if we found a smaller option that's a little bit, that you might be interested in it. Yeah, if there was something cheaper, I definitely think, but right now I can't get the homemaker, I'll get it in a couple months. Perfect, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna drop down, right? Hey, no problem, let me show you something smaller, just for fun, right? So understanding your objections, where do they come from? Because if you don't know where they're coming from, you can't handle them, therefore you won't create a sale. If you skip over what their concern is, now you become almost pushy versus highlighting it, talking about it, and then making sure that it is the true concern that they have. If not, finding what the real one is, and then going through that process again. Okay? Does anyone have any questions with that? Nothing? Man, I'm such a good teacher.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, what's up, Quincy? Naomi. Repeat that. So. Yeah, it's right in your script there. It says, so let me just show you something a little bit smaller. I added in the customizing option, but it's the same thing you're gonna say right there. It's like, hey, no problem. Let me show you something a little bit smaller. It's a few less knives for a lot less money. I think it might fit you a little bit better. So let me show you the galley set. And if that's not, I do have a couple other options and we'll see what catches your eye, okay? Yep, is basically what yeah, exactly. Thanks, John. Hi, John. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Nothing. Go ahead.
Right over my head. So something that I've listened to is anyone objection. You say a lot of like suggestions for customers. What I always do, sometimes I felt like I was kind of, I don't know if you guys ever felt this way where you're kind of just going to the next page. You kind of tell your customers like, I said I don't want to buy, or I don't want to look at the set, I want to take my own pieces. And sometimes like showing them another set, they kind of are already on this like negative vibe. Like, how powerful is recommending things for a customer? The power of suggestion.
Oh.
Instead of that line of like, hey, I think this would be a great tool for you. But if not, it's like giving them almost like two answers. How helpful?
Yeah, that was really big for me. I used to keep it simple, and like when I first started, my manager said read the script, right? And so I did. And then he talked about using like examples of other people or just helping them see things they don't see. He taught me, I'm from the real country where like everyone's horses and stuff. Like you wouldn't know by looking at me. I'm very Miami'd out these days. But where I come from, a lot of real country. Anyway, so you have horses that have blinders, right? So they can't see anything but what's directly in front of them. Your customer has blinders on in the middle of the presentation. All they see is what's directly in front of them, which is the homemaker, let's say at this point. They don't know anything else behind it, anything else after it, right? So as I'm building in my beginning, and so what I actually forgot to start with this, all of this really has an impact when you build good rapport. If you skip the 10 minutes building relationships with the customers, learning about them, what do they do for work, what sports and activities are their kids in, how long have they done that job, was that their major in school, like really taking time to get to know them. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, and when your customer feels that you care about them, and they know that when you agree with how they feel and you're listening and acknowledging their feelings, now you have a bigger ability and impact to suggest things. Okay, it's just like when you go to a restaurant, you ask the server, what's good? Which would you get between this or this? Right? Understand that that's a lot of, but customers aren't going to automatically ask a lot of those questions. So our job is to kind of know that. So in the beginning, I asked you cook because you have to, like to, or love to. There, I figure out what stuff do they do in the kitchen. Do they cook a lot of salads? Do they do a lot of meats? So as I'm going through the process, I already know what I should suggest to them if they don't pick it out. And so as I'm dropping down, I'm like, hey, by the way, it doesn't sound like this is the right set for you. Let me show you something a little bit smaller I think might fit you better. Right? And then if I drop down to the galley or the starter sets, I'm like, by the way, galley set's amazing. It was a Consumer's Digest Best Buy, but not everybody can start with that. Well, let me show you what a lot of our customers start with. They start with some of our starter sets or they customize with our Pick 5. And when you start doing that, understanding that people don't like to be the first of anything. Would you guys agree with that? Right? You guys ever been on the tollway and you see that there's like 5 booths and one booth has like 50 cars and one is open completely and there's not a car in it? Anyone experienced that before? I'm like, why the hell is everyone in one line? The green check mark's above all of them. I'm going to go to the one that's open because people follow what others do. So when you talk in experiences that other people have done, you give more confidence and belief to your customer as well. And so suggesting things, they don't even know what questions to ask 9 times out of 10. They don't know what the knives are used for, right? Even if mom cooks all the time. I had a lot of people that did cook and they didn't know the uses because they don't get taught that, right? Home ec doesn't teach that to you guys at all anymore. Grandma used a paring knife and a chef knife. That was like for everything. But we've over the years, we've added pieces that make the kitchen easier, right? Each tool has a specific use. Makes it way easier. So knowing what they like and what they would use makes it a lot easier to suggest things. And they want that from you, by the way. That's something I'd write down. They want you to tell them what's best for them. You are the knife expert. As weird as that might sound to some of you, okay? You're like, wait, I just started last week. I'm the expert? Yeah, you went through training with some pretty badass people, all right? Yeah. So understand that your customers, they don't know what even questions to ask. So one, ask more questions, get more clarity. Don't assume anything, okay? You probably all heard the saying, don't assume anything, you make an ass out of you and me, right? But more specifically, if you assume, you don't really know what's the concern, what's the question, or anything like that. But suggestion, it opens their eyes to be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. right? If you ever call me from a demo, I'll give a bunch of, like, I ask questions. What do they cook? What do they do? What, like, some of my guys don't like, I don't know. Other guys do. And if you tell me what they do cook, I can easily tell you what pieces I would recommend for them.
That's why we ask questions. That's why we really have you guys call in during your demo when you're here, guys, right? It's because the more we know about your customer, the better we can help navigate you through the presentation.
So true.
Right? Like, that's why Warren still calls in. She's at over $100,000 in sales, still on all Spencer, to get suggestions. It's guys like, sometimes like we just have brain farts, right? And we need that other just, brain really to help us, navigate where we should go next. Also, guys, Spencer taught me this line, and Kathy always talks about it. I would write this down. 4 customers just like you.
4 customers just like you.
This next option, Mrs. Jones, for customers just like you. Again, she likes, take control of the presentation.
Another good one is, in my professional opinion.
Yep, that's the one I use a lot too. In my professional opinion or my professional recommendation, XYZ. Right? I also want to establish myself as the expert, because when they know that you know what you're talking about, and you don't need to know everything, but understand that on speed dial, there's enough knowledge to make sure we can answer any and every question that you have, right? So in my professional opinion, I would recommend XYZ. In my professional opinion, blah, blah, blah. Just so you know.
I'm just kidding. Almost.
So cool. Did you have a question?
Like, is it forever going to be the $25 base pay?
I'm sorry?
Like, I'm saying, like, is $25 base pay, like, even after training?
Yeah, you have your guaranteed pay.
All that's different.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something, yeah.
Ask questions.
Any pertinent questions to this real quick for everybody? I'm gonna go with Roberts in the back and then I got you, CJ. Speak up a little louder from boss. Uh-huh. Mhm. What does that mean, by the way? If they want to know the price, do they care? Do they like Cutco, or are they not interested? They care. So go through all of your stuff. Don't skip anything, right? So here's a great, hey, Rob, give me the price. I don't need all this stuff. By the way, they do need all of it, because if they don't know why it cost it, they will not spend it.
Yep.
Okay. So knowing that means that I'm not going to skip anything. It's like, hey, do you mind if I show you all the steps just like my manager taught me so I can get credit for the practice? Right. Oh shit, I forgot you're practicing. Okay, yeah, show it to me. I promise I'll get to that in just a minute. Let me run through these last couple slides and we'll talk prices. That's what I used forever. Right. And then the customers, okay, cool. Especially in the first couple weeks, like they know you're practicing. Right. So just acknowledge that. Bless you. And keep going through your stuff. It's not that I don't want to tell them, but I know if they do not hear all the pieces that they understand the value of Cutco, I don't care how much they want to buy it. Now they're not going to buy nearly as much if they don't get all the value that makes the decision for them, right? So great question. Does that answer your question for you? Cool. Oh yeah.
And you guys want to make sure you know your closing, because I had people that were in a rush and they had to go to, how much? I gotta go, how much, right? And you can't just be like, $15.49. You gotta be like, well, Miss Susie, have you looked at prices recently? Oh, it's like anything else. There's a wide range of quality and prices. Cutco's top rated, so we only compare to the highest quality stuff. You have to be able, and so that's get your close down, because when you have someone like that who's in a rush, you gotta be able to go right into having a conversation about closing. Cool? So that's really important as well.
Yeah, memorize that word for word so you can use it any time. You should have your close where you can get it down in 5 minutes and actually pinpoint it with excitement, enthusiasm, build up the competition, explain the product, and ask for the order. So that's another. Thank you, Kathy. CJ, last question.
During the demo, when would you say is the best point to be asking them questions about, what they're cooking in the kitchen and things like that?
So I think it's slide 2, where you slide 2 or slide 4, I can't remember.
You cook because you like to have.
Yeah, that line.
And by the way, what types of things do you like to cook, right? You can find that out right there.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions I asked there. What do you cook often? What styles of cooking do you do? It depends on how good you are at cooking to know, but I want to know what foods. Another big question I teach all my guys is, what do you struggle with in the kitchen? What gives you a hard time? Guys, the easiest way to make a sale is to solve a problem. But if you don't know what the problem they have is in the kitchen, you can't offer a solution for that problem. Right? So every mom has something that they struggle with in the kitchen. Okay? Even if they hate cooking, even if they love cooking. And then when I follow up with that, I'm like, oh, CJ, I'm so excited to show you Cutco. This stuff's amazing. You're gonna love it. And I always talk with positive assumptions that they need it, they want it, they'll buy it. When my language matches up with that expectation, guess what their ideas match up to? My expectations. Why? Because I'm the expert, right? And when you position yourself as the expert, you give suggestions while listening and making sure you're handling what they're talking about, you will always have a sale every time. But when I first started, I didn't handle the objections, I just moved past them. I was like, oh, too much money? Okay, let me show you this one. Without saying, hey, I hear you. Too much money? Let me show you something. This next set, a little bit smaller, a little bit cheaper. I think it might be a better option for you. Right? Active listening has a big key, and in anything you do. Most people listen to respond. You need to be listening to understand. That's what someone taught me years ago. Listen to understand what they're saying and where they're coming from. And you'll be able to work with them versus against them. And now you're showing them everything with enthusiasm versus like trying to drag them through the presentation. Right? Anyone felt like the customer was done after like the galley set or something? I know I did when I first started. And so if you're actually doing this right and listening to them, you won't be dragging them along. They'll be more excited because they know you're not just trying to sell the homemaker set. You're trying to get them what fits them best. Right? And you go through all the options, everybody finds something that fits them through that process. Cool. Jay, last question.
You repeat the question so people can hear.
Yep. Yeah. So that would tell me, by the way, that we didn't build enough rapport.
Okay, so what I was going to ask,
For sure. Yeah, you could 100%. And they're like, I don't understand what problems do I have in the kitchen? I don't know, Jay. I'm like, okay, is there anything you struggle cutting? Anything hard or difficult? I know some of my customers, tear up some of their vegetables, cutting meats, they shred their meat and stuff like that. Do you have any or chopping through some tough vegetables, right? Like squash and eggcorn squash and things like that. Do you have any? Oh, actually, I do spaghetti squash all the time. It's a pain in the ass to cut. I'm like, oh, I got a solution for you, Jay. Let me show you a little bit later. And I don't go into it there either. I write it on my paper so I know that when I get to that spot, I bring it up. But I plant a seed. Oh, I got a solution for you. I'll show you in just a minute. That's a big thing, by the way. Not going into where we, like that moment going into it, but knowing where you're going to bring it back up later in your presentation, but saying something along the lines of like, oh, I got a solution for you. Oh, you're not the only customer I've dealt with that's had something like that. Let me show you. I'll show you a little bit later what they've done. If they don't have one for you, you can ask a couple for sure. But most moms have something they struggle with, right? And they'll tell you, oh my God, I hate cutting this. I do it every week, but I hate it. Like, oh, Mrs. Jones, how awesome would it be to like get through that faster, quicker, easier, and not have as much trouble? Would you be excited about that? Yes. Oh, perfect. I got a solution for you. Yep. Great question. Cool. Well, I think that is my time for today. Guys, have fun, kick some butt. It's playoffs, baby!